So good to have you right here on ET. Now you're watching the special coverage of the Modi cabinet reject. Some of the decisions along expected lines, some really took everyone by surprise, including members of the cabinet. Over the next half an hour, we are going to discuss the politics behind the reshuffle and how it affects the overall discourse. We're joined by very, very special guests. Three of them join us right here on ET now. BJP Siddharth Nath Singh, Congress's Gaurav Gogoi and JDU's Pawan Verma. Thanks each one of you for being with us. We're calling you the wise men for a reason. We're going to keep this discussion to politics of reshuffle. But because we have Mr. Singh from the ruling party, and the ruling party has really made the decision, I must ask you the question, Mr. Singh. What is the political message that you believe the expansion and the reallocation of portfolios really delivers? What is it that the Prime Minister is trying to tell the country at large, his party, and also his government?
Well, when you make a cabinet reshuffle or expansion, there are a number of things which goes into the this exercise, and well, certainly it is political also, but at the same time it is also an exercise to see how you are in a position to deliver what you wish to deliver as per your promises of the government during the budget or the manifesto of the party. And in this case, predominantly what has dominated in this exercise has been to bring in experience, bring in energy, bring in those people who have first-hand experience in the state politics. Particularly, they have been in the state government, and through that the Prime Minister wishes to reach out to the state delivery mechanism, particularly keeping the federal structure in mind, because his emphasis is if anything which the center wants to decide or wants to deliver, the success will depend on how the state is going to deliver, because under the federal structure, all these policies and announcements which relate to the common man, farmers and laborers needs to be delivered by the state government, and therefore he has strengthened his team based on that.
Fair point indeed. Strengthens his team on the basis of the federal structure, got the regional people from the ground upwards. Let's get a main word from the main opposition, and that's the Congress party. Gaurav Gogoi, is that how you're reading this political message, or do you believe there is more than meets the eye?
Well, it is completely a political exercise. First of all, you'll have to see that the rhetoric of minimum government, maximum governance has been exposed as double standards. When the Prime Minister started in 2014, his cabinet had around 45 ministers. Today, the Council of Ministers are 79. Now, that is only too short of the limit of the Constitution, given which is around 81. So, first of all, this myth has been exposed. Secondly, we know that the Prime Minister prefers a presidential form of governance in which he directly interacts with joint secretaries, and ministers seldom have any autonomy. So therefore, what is the purpose being served by the induction of 19 junior ministers, ministers of state who de facto have little autonomy? Therefore, it is seen that it is not an administrative exercise or a bureaucratic decision, but these 19 ministers represent the electoral concerns of the BJP, especially in those states where it's going into elections. These 19 members are reflecting the communities that the BJP is trying to court, and I'm unfortunate in today's India, marginalized communities need beyond electoral representatives. They need firm implementation of policies which will aid their social mobility and help their education and end atrocities against them.
Fair point indeed, and we're going to come to the caste equations in just a bit, but I do want to get in a word in from Pawan Verma as well. And Mr. Verma, I think our own understanding is that there are two exercises that the Prime Minister has tried to do. He's tried to put a premium on performance and governance, and he's also at the time tried to balance out the vote garnering exercises. So there are two things. Reallocation and reshuffle is one part of the exercise, and expansion is quite another. How are you reading into both of these?
No, I think the political message is a trifle garbled. because I think the attempt to do both a reshuffle and to accommodate the imperatives of the coming assembly elections in the cabinet, as a result of pursuing both these goals, on the one hand governance and better functioning of government, and on the other hand electoral compulsions and representations in the cabinet. As a result of trying to pursue both these goals simultaneously, somewhere I think the Narendra Modi government has fallen flat between both these tools. Neither governance nor necessarily efficacious representation in terms of the electoral compulsions.
I will take this across to Siddharth Nath Singh because I think he has 2 points to answer there. And Mr. Singh, the point that Mr. Gogoi made, that the minimum government, maximum governance idiom that your party did speak about over elections is gone. It is a jumbo cabinet. And the other point that Mr. Verma is trying to make here, this is a political exercise with its eyes on vote garnering. You did say that, states need a representation. These are leaders who've been trained at the state level. But answer those two charges that are coming your way.
Well, it is how you understand minimum government and maximum governance. And there is a cap through the constitution that you cannot have a cabinet more than that. But how you deliver and achieve maximum governance, let me give you 3 quick examples. When the affidavit, a decision by the cabinet that the attestations will not be done through MLAs and bureaucrats, it can be done individually. Self-attestation will be acceptable. It reduces the involvement of the government. That is called maximum governance. When you talk about third-class employees will not be required to appear in an interview, then you remove corruption. At the same time, you remove the bureaucratic red tapeism also. So there is a maximum governance, but minimum government. Similarly, through DBT and Jan Dhan Yojana, when you are able to deliver directly to the people 60,000 crores of benefit, which is a subsidy, that is called maximum governance. But perhaps the Congress wishes not to understand that because they were unable to do it. As far as the charge regarding the Prime Minister not in a position to, he works through the Joint Secretary and doesn't use the ministers. I think, well, we have a Prime Minister who's a constitutional head who enjoys the authority, unlike the UPA, where the Prime Minister was there, but he didn't enjoy the constitutional authority, or he could not exercise that. Now, coming on to the charge which is leveled by the JDU, let me say that it's a political electoral exercise. If that is the charge, then let me put this. I know the UP elections are coming, Punjab elections coming. Bihar elections is over. Why should we continue with the Bihar ministers in that case? Because if it is a political electoral exercise, then those elections, and particularly where we haven't fared well, Bihar we didn't fare well, they have fared well, we should have let the ministers been dropped and adjusted otherwise also. So right. I don't think it meets the eye. It meets the the accusation they are leveling on us.
Right.
It is an exercise to reach out and deliver whatever policies we have gone through the best team you can formulate.
Fair point indeed. They haven't gotten rid of states that haven't performed. But Gaurav Gogoi, let me just put forward the other point in this discussion. I don't want to keep wasting time on one argument. I think we just need to switch arguments. And let's talk about the other argument. You did say that this is a political exercise. Caste equations have been kept in mind. But there are observers out there who believe that the Prime Minister, as far as the reallocation of portfolios is concerned, has put a premium on performance and governance. And what explains the fact that some very crucial ministers have lost their portfolios? Smriti Irani shunted out of HRD into a lesser important ministry like textile. Ravi Shankar Prasad losing telecom, keeping IT and electronics, and of course getting additional charge of law. I mean, there is a premium on performance there. Would you negate that whatsoever, Mr. Gogoi?
Supriya, I think that's just a spin being attempted by the ruling government. If you see the cabinet and the Council of Ministers, they are ministers in this Indian government who are saying that Indian citizens should go to Pakistan, who are saying that Indian citizens who eat beef should be arrested, who are saying on this occasion of Eid that Indian citizens who follow the religion of Islam should be abused. So these are all signals being made by ministers who are currently sitting and who have not been shunted out of this government, which means that they have been given a tacit approval by the Prime Minister. They will be used in the upcoming assembly elections to further polarize our country, and the global investment audience who is looking at your channel will be worried that a government which came on the promise of development is using religious polarization as a way of electoral strategy. And I think if the really performance was the criteria, then these ministers who have made headlines, who have divided communities, who have stoked fear and hatred, they should have been the first ones to go. There's a minister who's insulted the former president of India, Abdul J. Kalam. So therefore, this performance-based selection or expansion is just a cover-up. The real face of this government is to use communal religious-based polarization and use their ministers as spokespersons.
I'm going to take both those charges to Mr. Singh, but I quickly want to club that question and put forward to Mr. Verma as well here. And that's exactly the question that I asked Gaurav. And, he's essentially pointed out to the fact that communal hotheads are still a part of the government. They haven't been shunted out. But has Mr. Modi tried to put a premium on performance and governance? Mr. Verma.
You see, if that was the case, there are ministers, and I would say this objectively, whose performance in the public realm is verifiable. Ministers like Piyush Goyal, I think to some extent Dharmendra Pradhan, in the field of roads Nitin Gadkari, there is Jayant Sinha in the Ministry of Finance. If you were rewarding performers, you should promote them, and if you were to promote ministers like them and give them additional charges, one could understand. On the other hand, there are habitual non-performers who've been retained in the cabinet. Like Radha Mohan Singh in the field of agriculture. Agriculture has seen, I think, in many ways a criminal neglect and lack of coherent policy making. Radha Mohan Singh retains that portfolio, and of course while Smriti Irani has been shifted, we have to see what is the difference that Mr. Javadekar is going to bring. But take a case of Mr. Sadanand Gowda. This is the third or fourth time he is being reshuffled in the space of 2 years. Why is he not dropped? Let me take another category of people who have caused grave embarrassment to the country, if not to this government, by their irresponsible statements and have contributed very little to the performance of government. You have people like V.K. Singh, you have people like Giriraj Singh, you have people like Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti, you have Dr. Mahesh Sharma, who inexplicably has both culture and tourism and does justice to neither. You have Sanjeev Balia. Now, these people are in the cabinet, and a motley group of 4 or 5 people have been dropped. So where do you see performance coming up? Let me give you a further example. Take somebody like Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. It seems to be a directionless game of musical chairs. Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad was Minister of Law. You move him to as Minister of Telecom. After he acquires some degree of exposure in handling the issues of telecom, not that he succeeded in any spectacular way, but after he's acquired and is on the threshold of implementing some of those decisions, you move him back to law. So I am unable to understand what's the pattern in this.
Yeah, but the counter argument to that can be that Ravi Shankar Prasad did not really go down well with the telecom industry, and the Prime Minister has been a little sensitive on that matter. But Mr. Singh, there are questions now coming your way, and it's because you represent the ruling benches here. The one point that Mr. Gogoi made, that why is it that communal hotheads have not been gotten rid of, and the other point that Mr. Verma made, that there are habitual non-performers. If Mr. Sadanand Gowda is not good enough to be a part of a ministry thrice over in 2 years, why have him in the cabinet? Radha Mohan Singh, I think there's a broad consensus that agriculture has been duly neglected. Why have him in the cabinet? So has the Prime Minister not taken the bold steps, so to say? He's done away with non-performers, but seemingly less important people. The big ones have been left untouched. And of course, the other point is that why not get rid of the controversial people, whether it's a V.K. Singh, whether it's Sadhvi Niranjan, whether it's Mr. Katheria, Mr. Balyan, why have them? And that perhaps is fueling the argument that you do have UP in mind, and which is where polarization is perhaps going to be the norm.
I think you have taken a long time to sum up both the questions which I had noted earlier of Mr. Pawan Verma and also of young colleague from Congress. So let me answer them straight. When the Congress raises on the saffron heads and they refer in that fashion, I think the Congress needs to introspect themselves and remember what was the basis or what was the ideology which forced their own home minister like Mr. Shinde to term a terror as saffron Hindu terror. What was the basis where their own Rahul Gandhi, while speaking to a diplomat through the WikiLeaks, we learned that he talked about the terror which is the homegrown, which is a Hindu terror, which they were trying to patronize and patent a terror as a religion. Then what was the need of their home minister to suit their political masters and a game plan in Gujarat to change the affidavit? I don't think they fall in the bracket to even raise these questions. So therefore, the Congress needs to introspect and then answer why you continued with them, what was the reason. At the same time, it is the Prime Minister's prerogative to continue with a minister or take a decision to change their portfolios. And he needs to do a balancing act depending. If I am in the party, or like Pawan Verma ji is in a party, we may suit a particular field and we could be tried out, and then we feel the Prime Minister or the President of the party feels, no, let us change him, he will be more suitable there. So let us leave the prerogative to the Prime Minister how he does the balancing act, as well as he selects the ministers depending where he finds the utility more. At the same time, I am not questioning, or the BJP is not questioning Pawan Verma ji's party, why you are continuing with a Deputy Chief Minister who loses his cool and shouts at the media and other people and call names. But you are compelled, neither I am asking why you are so compelled, because of Lalu Prasad Yadav. So therefore, it is left to Nitish Kumar to manage his ministry, whether he gets a flack or he doesn't get a flack. So I don't think the argument or again the accusation they are able to justify, except yes, as a rhetoric, they are in opposition, they need to raise the kind of an accusation that why they feel the reshuffle or the expansion is not appropriate.
Fair point indeed. Gaurav Gogoi, I want you to be candid here at this stage. Whatever we may say, and like Mr. Singh is pointing out there, it has to be the prerogative of the Prime Minister who he wants to retain and continue, and who he wants to get rid of. But at the end of the day, recast or reshuffle or expansion is really a political exercise, and the Congress has battled with this in the past as well, whether it was accommodating allies or regional aspirations. This is going to be a political exercise, and politics will call the shots here. It isn't going to be pure economy or pure judgment and pure conscience keeping that is going to really come into play.
Well, I'm glad you realized that. That's the point that we've been taking, that it's a political exercise aimed at identity politics, which is the kind of politics this country does not need. This country needs a politics of development, of growth, of jobs. But solely the induction of 19 junior ministers have only been to placate the communities that they represent. And this is not the way India progresses. Please note that foreign investors, global heads of state have commented on the declining situation in terms of tolerance and that exists amongst major communities. US President Obama has commented on this on more than one occasion. So if the BJP spokesperson is unable to answer tough questions, then he should not have appeared on this panel, because this panel, this agenda is about the reshuffle or expansion which is taken. But instead of taking questions, he is only sought to deflect blame and deflect the attention, which shows that, he is not confident. What we are saying, if the BJP is talking about performance, then this formula should be applied uniformly to all the people, to all the ministers. So therefore, the ministers of agriculture,
Right.
under which we have seen so many farmer suicides, ministries of industry and commerce, in which we have seen the core industrial sectors growing sluggishly, having stagnated, the ministers of culture who
Right.
are making remarks which are antithetical to our Indian culture, these should have been the first to go. And the Prime Minister should have been firm on those ministers whose comments are only stoking religious anger.
Right.
So
Right.
this kind of identity and politics should be exposed. I'm glad
Right.
you're agreeing, and should be avoided, because our country today needs jobs for young people, and we need our industries to
Right.
grow and
Right.
for our entrepreneurs to come forward.
I do want to pick up another thread in this whole argument, and I think the one thing that shocked us here at ET Now, at least because we cater to that community, is the ouster of Jayant Sinha from Finance Ministry, and this is coming very close on the heels of Raghuram Rajan deciding to go away as well. At a time when there's such global economic uncertainty and Indian growth is also just about picking up, this was a gamble that the government is willing to take. Pawan Verma, come in on that. Is there a sense that there is a discomfort of sorts within the party and the government with the Ivy League, so to say? It's quite evident, is it not?
It's not that. The truth is that domain experts, with whatever degrees they bring along with them, need to have a connection with Nagpur. Please remember that this is a government which has its ideological core in the RSS, the BJP. It is its political facade. And those who do not conform to that ideology, or do not pay obeisance to it, or do not genuflect before it, or have not been associated with it, they are always on probation. And that is what is happening most spectacularly in the areas of HRD, in education and in culture. So there is a systematic attempt, and therefore those who come from outside the system have not had this association, they will always be suspect.
Mr. Singh, that's a grave accusation that you've got to have your allegiance to your ideologue fountainhead, and that's the RSS, and people who do not are perhaps going to be at the receiving end. I mean, you know, we've been finding it very difficult to understand why Jayant Sinha has been shunted out of Finance Ministry. He understood that community and that market rather well.
Well, let me first come on the Congress, and then I'll come to the Pawan Vermaji's, accusations.
Sure.
Thank you for suggesting that I should not be on the panel. So next time when ET invites, please ask the Congress whether you wish to invite me on your panel or not. But surprisingly, the young Congress spokesperson should learn the patience and little respect while charging on another political party's spokesperson. But I leave it to Congress, because I do remember Rahul Gandhi tearing off the ordinance when the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had passed it, and how he insulted the Prime Minister. So it comes in their DNA, so I will leave there. But nevertheless, coming on Congress, I don't know how many times the Congress in their tenures, or even if I take 5 years tenure, 2 tenures, how many times the Congress removed their top 5 senior leaders from the various ministries they were holding, which is Home, Finance, Defense and External Affairs. How many times they had rejected? I don't think they have a track record of continuity the way the Modi government has maintained that continuity. Now coming on the other thing of electoral alliances or electoral thought process which goes in, then please tell me, did you look at your talent and the seniority of your leaders while picking up the top 5 of your cabinet throughout the 10 years tenure when they did not speak even Hindi? Was it not then I should say you were not addressing the Hindi heartland, and that is then it's a political grapevine for you guys. So these are things you depend.
Right,
the Prime Minister picks up on the basis of the talent, and let's give the Prime Minister that chance, whoever is the Prime Minister or whichever party he may be. So therefore the argument falls flat.
Right.
At the same time, when you talk about Jayant Sinha, I can only say he's a bright young politician, and it is the prerogative where the Prime Minister is looking him to suit, or the independence to be given to him to work. So I would leave it there rather than getting into an argument which may suit the
Right.
co-panelist or not. But let me also add here, the strength of the government and the macro and the microeconomics of the country are very strong under Prime Minister Modi and Arun Jaitley, because lot was
Right,
spoken by
right.
the opposition
Yeah.
and economists on the Brexit and also on the Raghuram
Right.
Rajan issue. But everybody has realized the economy is kicking and the government is doing well. So
Fair point.
I don't see there should be a reason for anybody to feel scared.
I do have a quick question to all three of you, and we're going to get closing comments very quickly. Mr. Pawan Verma, Venkaiah Naidu and S.S. Ahluwalia are known to be people who have connections across party lines. They're known to have friends across party lines. Do you believe they have been brought in to help build that consensus that has so far eluded between the opposition and the treasury benches?
You see, as far as consensus goes, the impulse must come from the top. Mr. Venkaiah Naidu is a talented minister in his own right, and as he has now been given additional charge of INB, which is in itself a big ministry, along with urban development and so on and so forth. You change one parliamentary minister by another, but the impulse from the top is to treat the opposition with disdain, not to have institutional measures to reach out to them, to invite a few leaders once for a cup of tea and forget about any follow-up. What is the Parliamentary Affairs Minister going to do, whoever it may be? The GST would have been passed much earlier, in my view, had this government made made the initiative of reaching out to the opposition. There must be the poorest levels of reach out to the opposition, and much of it is based on a hubris and arrogance which flows as an impulse from the top. Ministers follow that impulse.
All right, Mr. Gogoi, because we're getting closing comments, I want you to be a little brief here. The attempt has been, and S.S. Ahluwalia has been a part of the Congress party before, the attempt is to get some kind of a consensus going, because so far there have been partial dialogues here and there. Do you believe the government is going to now reach out and do some kind of consensus building by getting the right people into the job finally? People who have lines of communication with your party?
Well, first of all, Shri Venkaiah Naidu was a very senior minister and performed his duty excellently. Secondly, when the new team, the new cabinet is put in place, we can only expect that they will work in a way that evolves political consensus and takes India forward. But for that, time will tell. And lastly, I did not aim to make any disparaging remarks on my senior BJP spokesperson. If it seems so, I do apologize. But nonetheless, this reshuffle and expansion exposes the rhetoric of maximum governance, minimum government. It only establishes the presidential form of leadership that the Prime Minister enjoys and implies that these 19 new ministers are only meant to placate the communities using identity politics of a very low kind, of which we, young generation of politicians, hope that India moves away from.
Fair point indeed. We'll have the last word go to Siddharth Nath Singh on this. Two quick questions, and I'm clubbing them both. Will we actually see some amount of decentralization happen, which is warranted? We know the Prime Minister's office is right now calling all the shots. And the second question is, has this recast in the cabinet set the stage for a recast within the party?
Well, let me put this. Firstly, I disagree to your viewpoint that there is no decentralization. Every minister is free and the Prime Minister office doesn't call the shot. But yes, there is a system, democratic system, the parliamentary system which exists in India, and that is being followed. Secondly, well, there is an exercise for the party because the President Amit Shah ji has got his well, I would say it's his first term. Earlier he was on Rajnath ji's term, tenure, he was leading. So he will be looking at certain positions which needs to be filled, and looking at that. That's again an exercise which he will be doing along with the senior leaders. Let's hope for that. And at the same time, let me also end. I think Mr. Modi has formulated a council of ministers which are going to work for the development of India and particularly looking at how to deliver various policies, that initiatives which he has taken, to the last man who's standing in any particular state, be it the BJP rule or even JDU rule or Congress rule. So that's the way we are going to be looking at.
All right, that's the way the BJP is going to look at this expansion, the reshuffle and the reallocation. But thank you each one of you for being with us, Mr. Pawan Verma, Mr. Gaurav Gogoi and Mr. Siddharth Nath Singh, joining us on the politics of the reshuffle. It's been a riveting discussion of the last 30 minutes. Thanks very much for being with us.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.